What's up? This is Chris, and I'm here to do a book review, my number 2 book review here. And this time I'm completely changing the script. It's not a book. Well, it kind of is. I guess you could consider it a book. It's a lecture series from Audible. And actually, I do a lot of Audible books. Audiobooks are like my preferred way to digest books and real content. I do a lot of podcasts and that sort of stuff. So audio is a big thing for me. I can do audio while I'm driving or while I'm working in a house or while I'm at the gym or whatever. So it's a great way for me as a person who's a little bit on the go and traveling a bit to get my reading in, because I think it's important to do that sort of stuff. This time I did a lecture series from the Great Courses, and this isn't the first great course I've partook in. I've done a few different ones. But this one I found because I was doing a search on Audible for color and psychology. I had this thought I wanted to brush up my color, psychology, know-how. I remember doing some of that stuff in marketing school, but it's been a while, and I've been doing some website design and graphic design kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of brush up my chops, learn a little bit, and make sure I was sharp in that area. And what I found was so much more than that. I found a lecture series where the information I was learning there was immediately applicable to what I was doing in the real world. I mean, I'm not even kidding. I would listen to one lecture, and the same day I'd be applying the stuff in my designs. So very, very applicable stuff from this series. So let's tell you about it. The title of the series is How Colors Affect You, What Science Reveals. And that's the what science reveal part is really what drew me to this thing. Two things really. One was this, and the other is the author or the guy that did the lecture, which I'll tell you about in a second. But what science reveals, every chapter, every lecture series, every lecture that's part of this lecture series, roots itself in scientific experiments that have been done, and then how to apply those scientific experiments to your world. Right, so it's rooted in science, in evolutionary biology, and psychology, okay, which is huge, because I want to look at the information that's actually been tested, not some mumbo jumbo, in the sky kind of crap. This is real stuff, applicable, measured things. Now, the second thing that really drew me into this was the author, was the guy doing the lecture. He wrote the lecture and did it on the audiobook, so I'm, kind of word to mouth or straight from the horse's mouth, however you want to think about it. This is a lecture series conducted and written by Professor William Lidwell. Now, I've never heard of this guy before, but apparently he's got a lot of accolades. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He lectures at the Gerald B. Hines College of Architecture at the University of Houston. He's the Director of Innovation and Development at the Stuff Creators Design Studio in Houston. He earned his BA in Psychology from Texas State University and his MS in Interaction and Instructional Design from the University of Houston Clear Lake. So pretty solid educational background. But this next part is really what made the light bulb go off for me as a marketer, where I was like, man, I got to listen to what this guy is saying. He frequently consults on matters of design and consumer experience with leading firms including Harrah's, IKEA, Merrill Lynch, and Procter and Gamble. So not only is this guy pretty well educated on psychology and design and that sort of stuff, but he's getting hit up by big time brands to come in and teach them how to do these things. And if they're learning from him, I definitely want to learn from him. So that was a real treat to listen to someone who really is doing this stuff in the real world, and that also trickles in throughout the whole entire series. So he'll talk about the actual science, he'll go into the experiments, he'll talk about what that really means, and then he'll tie examples to real life brands and like sports and uniforms and all sorts of things, architecture too. But that's the part really stuck with me is the brand stuff, because that's what I was going to do. I'm trying to tie it to brands and make sure that they're using color as appropriately as possible. Now, the actual lecture series is broken up into 6 chapters. There's an intro chapter called The Meanings of Color. Then there's a chapter on every major color group. So black and white's the first one, moves into red, yellow, green, and blue. And I mentioned it before just a second ago that it's all the chapters are rooted in science. So there's like a key experiment or multiple experiments per color that are discussed and then those experiments are elaborated on into real world applications to that stuff. I'll try to give you an example here. So one of the things that was in the yellow chapter was an experiment where they, basically handed out exams in a college, at a university that were done on different colored paper. There's yellow, red, blue, and green. Now, what they found is that the students who were using the yellow paper had higher test scores on average. And this was done over a long time, over different classes. Thousands of students partook in this experiment, and it's been reviewed. So, the margins there are significant, and it's a really interesting finding that yellow had such an impact on cognition. Now, what does that mean about yellow? How does that impact how we use yellow? I'll save that for the lecture. I think you should, really hear it from William Lidwell. But it's certainly, the things I picked up from there are going to impact the way that I use different colors in my designs and in my marketing and even in the things that I wear. I think it's really, really interesting. So overall, I'll bring it back to one thing I said in the beginning was about how applicable this information was to what I was doing in the real world. That's what makes me give this, whole entire lecture series 10 out of 10. One of the best things I've ever picked up out of Audible, because it's absolutely applicable to everything I'm doing and instantly applicable. I've read other kind of marketing books that are really rooted in science, and I love them, but they're a little bit more, difficult to take that knowledge and apply it to what I'm doing every single day. That is, the opposite. Well, I wouldn't call it an opposite, but it's a different case with how color affects you, what science reveals. So definitely would recommend it, and that's kind of my review. So hopefully I'm doing these reviews right. I don't know, somebody who reviews a lot of books is going to be like, you didn't even do that. And I don't even know. So I'm just doing it how I think it will be most beneficial to you and what's most fun for me. So again, this is How Colors Affect You, a review by me, Chris Overlay, the Professor William Lidwell. He was the one who wrote the lecture and conducted it. Very good job, Professor. Hopefully your students love you because you're flipping awesome, dude. And that was on Audible as part of the Great Courses selection. All right, I think I got all the copyright stuff there, and I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you next time. Adios.